all that rosy things about consulting, that's definitely true, but there is a grind that happens. So you have to really slog and try to understand a particular situation, why the business chose you in that particular project. But it all depends on whether you are the right fit for consulting, as the consulting is right fit for you.
Oftentimes we are confused about what we are good at and where do we want our careers to go. And we all need to hear a few people, their stories, who have treaded on these paths in the past and have made mistakes and, have had these learnings in their lives. I today have with me double MBA grad who has worked in marquee companies like Deloitte and is now part of Amazon, Ashish Dwivedi. Ashish, welcome to InsideIIM and looking forward to having a great conversation with you.
Well, thanks for having me, Paul. Looking forward to interacting with you as well.
Lovely. The decision to do an MBA or going forward in your life and making these management decisions that you might have seen being part of Deloitte, that came in while you were in Deloitte, or during your course, during your undergrad, you sort of thought that maybe this is not going to cut it. Maybe I have to look forward to upskill myself and get into a management role and make decisions.
So it was sort of a design. I planned it that way. I think in the typical setup of a professional career, an MBA should come in after you have either get some experience, or if you are a fresher and you just wanted to get straight into the B school, at least get some perspective into what you're getting at, get some information about the respective functions, what's life after a B school. So I pursued the former, and I really enjoyed my stint at Deloitte. I think that formal education is always required. It's not mandatory. However, I think in my particular case, I really was sure that after 2 years, this was the right time to leave my professional career and then start building on my learning path. And while I was in first year, I looked around and there were a lot of competitions ongoing, and I was really fascinated by how these firms interact with the schoolers and how the seniors were all engrossed in these live case studies, and they were getting so much learning out of it. And through those interactions, I realized that actually the key learning that happens in a school is not through classroom. That's only constituted, I'd say, from my perspective, about 20-25% of the total learning that you get. The rest all comes from your peer interaction through all those long nights that you spend with your friends, cracking a particular case, working on the competitions.
Ashish, there's a rosy picture of consulting firms that we all have in our minds, expensive hotels, a lot of traveling, a lot of going around places, making big decisions for very big companies. Does that happen in the very beginning of your career?
So I think, a consultant's life is a sort of a black box, and often different people portrays as differently. Consulting is not for everyone. I think it's a lifestyle that again align with your interests. So I would say that it's a problem-solving function. So it's not something that's different from any of the work that you do. A consultant typically faces a problem, and all he has to do is solve that problem. End of period. It doesn't matter where you come from, what's your skill set. If you can solve a problem in the right manner, you can get the desired results for your clients and consumers, then you are a consultant. And that all that rosy things about consulting, that's definitely true, but there is a grind that happens. So you have to really slog and try to understand a particular situation, why the business chose you in that particular project, or that why the client is really worried about that problem, and you are there to help him or her. There is no structured framework over here. It depends on how quickly you can grasp things. There is no necessity that you have to spend endless hours. There is travel involved. But it all depends on whether you are the right fit for consulting, as the consulting is right fit for you.
Maybe you have solved a lot of these problems in the 5 years of diverse experience that you have had in, brand management, or if it is business development, or it's program management, or it's retail and consumer goods industries. You have worked, in diverse sectors in different capacities during your time here. What were some of the learnings that you took back with yourself, which helped you in the longer run?
So I think typically in consulting, you don't choose your industry. You enter as a plain vanilla consultant. You do come with a lot of experience, let's say, in particular industry. And that's how your initial projects are assigned. For me personally, that was financial services, because previously I had experience in digital product development for financial services clients. However, I think as I grew up in this role, I entered into healthcare space, then into hospitality, retail and consumer goods. So there were a lot of fond memories in terms of different problems. At times, I would be developing a particular solution that client did not have or did not anticipate. And they were just reeling with either the loss of market share, or they were just reeling with their internal problems that they did not have a scalable solution to just tackle and show them that this is your problem. And it was a pleasure ride, because I could change my industries at any point in time, as and when the new client projects came in.
Mostly in this country, you hear people doing one MBA is enough for them. I mean, that's all that they can dream of, and then they get to the HULs and PNGs and Bains and BCGs of the world, right? You decided otherwise. You wanted to go to Singapore and study more, right? And I'm talking about NUS, where you landed next. Tell me the rationale behind this decision. What exactly were you thinking, and how do you think that has paid off to you so far?
So I think, you're absolutely on point that I think forget MBA. I think even just one undergrad degree is enough for most people. It's not mandatory to have a degree under your belt. I think I just want to get that out of the way. For me personally, after 3 years into Deloitte, after my MBA, first MBA, I realized that, okay, I had a career path where I wanted to get from a product perspective, right? I wanted to get into product management, and the work that I was doing was brilliant, but it was not aligned with the changed vision I had. So you all grow, you get perspective after working in the industry, and then you realize that, okay, do you have all the competencies and skill set? Do you have everything what it takes to make that transition? And you have to be very honest with yourself that what have you learned so far, and where is the gap? So that's where I realized that, okay, I really wanted to get downstream where all the consumer action is happening. And though I was working with a lot of clients, I really wanted to get where I was directly interacting with the consumers and being part of that strategy team which were delivering those strategies on ground.
So Ashish, you were in Singapore, you mentioned, and then you were working with Procter & Gamble, and from that, pandemic happened, as you mentioned. A lot of lives changed, a lot of decisions changed, a lot of trajectories changed in life. For you, the trajectory changed to a company which is essentially everywhere in our households. I think without the presence of Amazon, every day feels like non-existent. Ashish, joining a company like Amazon in the year 2020, what was the sort of responsibility that you were given, and what is the kind of responsibility that you have right now?
It was a difficult decision back then, because I wanted to take a call on whether I want to continue in the country in that situation where my family was not comfortable relocating, and what other options I wanted to pursue. And that's when I realized that, okay, I've achieved that experience that I wanted to gain, and to take a holistic call on what are the options that are available back home. And I wanted to relocate back to Hyderabad, where my family was. And Amazon, they had a lot of great opportunities that came up through my interaction with my fellow peers over there. And through that, I realized that, okay, in the product management space, there are a lot of programs, managers opening up, and which suited my interest. And I think identifying that right role is the most important thing, irrespective of every other factor that comes associated with it. I and my team, we build products which have a direct impact on the vendors, suppliers, and the consumers. Typically, as a consumer, we don't get to see all of that because it's a bundled offering we get to see in the app or in the overall supply chain. But there are a lot of digital products, there are a lot of products in between that are launched which we interface with. So I did a program with Prime Video where we launched certain transactional video on demand for Germany market. And so it's a small digital offering which sits within the universe of Prime Video. Similarly, we built a product for a vendor onboarding, which a lot of different vendors, how they can sell on Amazon. So there is a huge nexus in how that flows into the supply chain. So it's a pretty interesting space. And in this firm, I think you can get into every corner of the supply chain basis or interest.
What does Ashish watch more, Amazon Prime Video or Netflix?
I think it's a bit of both. So I like to keep it diversified, like my investment portfolio.
As a person who's responsible for developing product, what do I need to have in terms of skills or qualities that makes me eligible to get into Amazon and get into a product role just like Ashish did?
So I think first of all, the most important trait is to have an very inquisitive mind. So you should be open to learning. I think that's how you should start. Then you need to be open to whatever learning that will come your way. You'll have to put your more than 100% into that. You'll not always be ready for a challenge. And you have to get the desired level of knowledge that is required for that field. That is the first thing that is required of a candidate or an aspirant. Secondly, I think you have to start thinking from a consumer's perspective. I think a lot of us, and me included, we go haywire. We try to get engulfed into what the company is doing. We become high admirers of the company and the kind of products that we have, and then we think that everything is rosy and why certain things should fail. And I think it's a brilliant product, but I think the first research or the first thing that you should do is think from a consumer. Analyze from a consumer, get the consumer stories in place, the product iterations or the product minimum viable product or the product journey that you take into consideration has to start from the consumer mind. And once you do that, I think then everything falls into place. And people skills is as important as subject matter, because you're dealing with real people over here. And you have, for some people you have to report to, some people you are reporting to you. And you have to get work done both upstream and downstream. How good of a people person you are, that will exactly define how successful you will be in this particular role.
Ashish, before we let you go, last piece of advice for students who are looking to get into a B school and are not sure what exactly they should be looking.
First, you have to do the self-introspection. That is absolute must. You should be thoroughly aware of your strengths and opportunities. You should know that whether you're a highly tech-savvy person or you love to get into the business end of it, firms making money, how is this happening, or you love to execute. So you have to understand what is your strength. And from that, do take these vocational courses, interact with the people who are in that role. It might just go over the top. You might know what supply chain is, you might not know what marketing is, but you have to spend those many hours to get a glimpse of if I'm getting into this B school, eventually I'll be an MBA grad, I'll be working in these functions. So what these functions are all about. And once you have identified that you are a prospective MBA aspirant and you have ruled out other lanes, and then I think you should look for a university that matches with your aspirations. And lastly, I think you should always look at the diversity of the batch. You don't want to end up in a B school where everyone is like you. If all these factors are right, eventually they will have high placements figures. So not looking at the end objective, but I think doing the process right will get you in the right place.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Ashish, for taking time and talking to us. Sharing your journey, sharing your story from XIMU to now where you're working with Amazon. And I'm sure you must have motivated some of the audience member who's watching this particular episode today. And I wish you all the very best for your career in achieving all the things that you have set out for yourself. If you want to know more about the institute that Ashish has studied in, there's a link in the description. You can check that out. And do tell us in the comments below if you liked the story and if you have any questions for Ashish. We will make sure that we send those questions to Ashish for him to answer.